Would you like to discover powerful ways to drive change in your organization? Would you like to learn about the latest concepts in people strategy, HR effectiveness, and optimization that will help your organization achieve a competitive advantage in your industry? Then HRBP MBA Masterclass with Ron Thomas is for you. With today's uncertain business landscape, HR leaders now play a pivotal role in what some say is a paradigm shift in the industry. This comprehensive 3-day program, in-person or virtual, will empower you to embrace a more strategic mindset, enhance your decision-making skills, and help your organization to the next level. To register as a group or individual, email us at info@strategyfocusgroup.com or visit our website at www.strategyfocusgroup.com.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it's the CEO series where we bring together the most amazing guests, disruptors, innovators, CEOs, C-suite, you name it, we have it. Interesting conversations about their careers and a whole host of other topics. Our guest today is Ivy de Borja, who's an HR leader with 17 years of experience in various industries. She is currently the Vice President of HR for Acquire BPO. Her areas of expertise are fast-paced volume recruiting, HR business partnerships. She was certified by the Human Capital Institute as a strategic HR business partner, and it just goes on and on. Amazing career, and I'm honored to have Ivy as a guest. Ivy, welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are at. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Yeah, because we are global and it's different time zones that we speak about. So, I've always been amazed by your career from knowing you for probably 5 years now, whatever it was. Tell us about your journey and how did you get from coming out of university, getting a job in human resources, and you've had this amazing career at this point, and we never know where it's going to end up.
Yes, sure. So I majored in political science and psychology, thinking I was going to be a lawyer, right? Okay. And then I had to adjust it. And I said I was going to be a writer. So that was my first job. But then a friend called and I was invited to apply as a recruiter. And, the rest is history. I've always been interested in, of course, obviously human resources because I took up psychology. But to me, it was just a concept at the time. Then I got it, and then it became a practice. And this is where I stayed.
Wow. Just out of chance, you got a call as a recruiter, and it started from there. So how do you stay focused? I mean, if you look at your career and if you follow you on LinkedIn, you've had these jobs that have just kept rising to the level that you are now. How do you stay focused?
Yeah, so when I got in the world of HR, I needed to know what I could do well. And what I discovered was I did great in closing things. When there is a deliverable, I see to it that it is finished. And because I'm just naturally competitive, that, Ron, I would want to do it well before the deadline, right? If you tell me, run 1 kilometer in 20 minutes, I would try to do that in 10 minutes, right? And then go back another kilometer. So the world of recruiting is really for the competitive, right? So I was easily noticed. And then somebody by the name of Irene Roa told me, Iha, you're going to go places. And that stuck. And I was like, yes, I'm going to go places. And then after 3 years of doing recruiting, this is fast-paced volume recruiting, right? Yeah. I would recruit 100 or so in 2 weeks' time. That's how much we were hiring for. And I was really working overtime because I wanted to close. Then after about 3 years, I realized I was busy, but I was bored. Like it's the same thing. And I was wondering where to next. I felt like I knew what I was doing so well, like the back of my hand. And I don't know, I just wanted something else. So I saw this posting, literally, it was a paper, Ron, posted on the bulletin board. And it had said it was recruiting for an organization development assistant manager. And I was like, what is that? What is organization development? So, I asked around, I Googled, but I still couldn't understand it. Right? So then in my, search in the internet, I saw a course at a university for organization development. So what I did was I talked to the manager hiring, Miss Tessa, and I told her, I'm really interested, but I have no idea what you do. Like zero. So I can't interview with you right now, but if you give me time, I'll just finish one module, then interview me so I have a background, then I'd come back, knowing already what the job is about. And she did. So I remember my manager at the time, the recruiting manager, was asking me, will they accept you for that position? You don't know a thing. And I was like, wait for it. Wait for it. I'm coming. So then, I got the job and I fell in love with human resources from there. It's not even human resources, change management, and, all those high concepts. I fell in love with it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because when people think I've always said human resources, those two words have a bad connotation. The brand is damaged beyond that. So when you talk about organizational development, my first foray into so-called leadership in an organization was OD. And I did the same thing you did. I went to NYU and I got the certificate in OrgD, and it kind of switched everything around. So you were able to have that hunger for that. And that was kind of the driving force, because from that space, you understand a little more than just the HR process piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally love that experience. To this day, I'm so thankful to the young Ivy who decided to take the leap, even if she didn't know a thing.
Yeah. So, one of the key points you mentioned is you were bored. And I think about people, and I get emails all the time, people that are doing the same thing over and over again. And they're trying to figure out what's next. So the boredom comes in. What kind of advice would you give to that person? They're sitting there, they're doing the same things over and over again. The job is not fun anymore. And they're thinking about what's next.
Yeah, the first thing that I would love for them to deliberately do is to discover what they are good at. Right? First, you need to know what you're talented about, right? And then kind of map out from good how you would be great. From great, how would you be exceptional? So that requires some peg, right? So you look at people who have done it, right? You watch or listen to podcasts, whatever it is that you do, right? And then kind of charter your own course. And from there, you'd realize how little you know, right? And when you need to discover more, learn more, that keeps you expanding, growing, but still focused on what you want to be now and in the future. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, because so many people connect, and everybody, they're struggling. They're doing a job, and they reach kind of what I call a crossroads. Do I make a left, right, or do I continue going to the next stop? But I know I'm not getting a fulfillment about doing this every day. And I always say a good sign of that is when you hate Monday mornings, or whatever region you're in. Here, it would probably be Sunday. It used to be Sunday. You hate that because of the fact that you're doing something and it's just going through the processes. And what you did was a way to try to take it beyond that.
Yeah, because life is short. YOLO, right? I mean, you would want to spend your days at the end of your day
Yeah.
feeling fulfilled with what you've accomplished, not just, tick boxes or collect your paycheck. That's a sad life.
Well, the other key point that I wanted to bring out and get your insights on is that we're in charge of our careers. You were in charge of yours. You knew you were bored and you started seeking things, and then something popped up and you said, okay, here's a kind of a detour. How do I do to get to this step? So is that what you would advise for people to always be kind of aware of what's going on around you, your interest in what you're doing? Am I going to do this for the next 10 years? Or am I going to say, I'm going to change this dynamic?
Yes, basically it starts from within, right? Because this may be what you're doing right now for many, many years. But if you do not try and have the courage to try things that pique your interest, you'll never know how you could grow, right? And the second thing I want to say is surround yourself with great people and more importantly with mentors, right? Because your friends can give you advice. Your family can probably do that too. But mentors are people who care about your development, your growth, and people who will give, the license to slap you, right? Right there and then, if you're not thinking sane.
Stop it.
Stop it. So that's the other thing. That's the other secret, is to have people who care about you professionally and who had done it and who would, just give it to you transparently. Even if it means it's going to hurt you, you're going to cry, you're going to pity yourself. It could be, moods, emotion, but at the end of the day, it puts you to the right course.
Yeah, that reflection, because sometimes it can be brutal, but you know what? Sometimes you need that slap.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know what? I told you before we went live, you and I had a discussion, and I applaud the way that you have a large following. In looking at your bio, just for the audience, she was recently hailed as one of the top 100 Filipinos to follow on LinkedIn for inspiration learning. You don't just get that. And then at the World HRD Congress, I remember this because Darwin and I were there, and this was right before COVID. And you didn't come because of COVID, but you were going to get an award at the World HRD Congress in Mumbai, which is every February, as one of the top HR tech leaders in the world. You don't come from doing recruiting to get that kind of award. You don't come from recruiting to be one of the top 100 Filipinos to follow on LinkedIn. That is not bestowed. You earned that.
Thank you. And I think what we need to also share here to the audience is it's a system, right? To get from point A to point B requires discipline. It's not. So far we've talked about what are you good at, what's your passion, right? Surround yourself with the right people. But there will be times when it's just tough. It's just tough to get through your day. It's tough to deliver what you're supposed to do just because, I don't know, maybe you're going through life, right? Maybe there's a family problem, whatever it is. But success comes when you have mastered the discipline. That's one great lesson. Even if I don't like ironing my clothes, I need to iron my clothes because I can't protect myself in this wrinkly shirt. You know what I'm saying? Right? So you get up every day, right? And even if you don't feel like it, you've got to do it, right? Because people are counting on you. And if you do that, it's your system, right? And you also have your warning system. You know when to adjust, when to call a friend, not to spiral down some more, right? And you develop that system, then you achieve consistency. And with consistency comes people's trust to you. They just know that they can count on you, whether the weather is good or bad, right? Whether you're sad, feeling bad, it doesn't matter. They know that they can count on you, and that is very important to get from point A to point B to Z.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to, because I follow you. To give the audience some background, you and I met in Bali. You were
You
taking
know,
a course, an ACI course on strategic HR business partnering. And we've kept in touch since that particular point. So I've noticed how you post things and the number of people that follow you, the number of people that look to you for inspiration and insight. So that an acknowledgement from LinkedIn was well earned because you've done all that, and people look up to you, but you consistently give back. And we talk about how you give back, it comes back, and you've earned all of that. So I'm just kind of laying it on a little bit. You know what I mean?
thank you. Thank you. Yes. Because I think our success wouldn't be quite a success if we do not bring people around us to into that success, right? It's
Yeah.
not just about one person shining. It's about, to your point, sharing what you know. And when posting, I also don't like, just posting a quote. No offense to anyone who does that. We do that every now and then. But I think when you talk from the heart and from your experience, and people would, while they're reading your post, feel like they were there in that situation because it's just so vivid, is when they can relate to it and follow you.
Yeah, they've experienced it. I mean, some of the things you post, I say, oh yeah, that's happened to me too. Okay, cool, good insight from that. So thank you for doing that. So what would you say is the best career decision you've ever made?
Best career decision I've ever made. I think the best one that I made, I reflected on that earlier today. And I realized it was about doing the thing that scared me.
Ah,
Yep. And that was getting out of my comfort zone, which was
mm,
recruitment. This was already, so what happened was I went into organization development, and then I think I practiced a little bit of HR. No, I didn't. So I went back to recruitment again, got promoted as a recruiting manager. So I was comfortable in that space. I was a performer. I was a star, a rock star, they called me. But then somebody called and said, I need an AVP for human resources. And I didn't know HR. I didn't know, in our world, we call it labor relations,
okay.
right? I didn't know how to deal with employee grievances, such a technical space. I didn't know that, and HR operations. Um, but I decided to take the leap. Again, just like, organization development, here
Yeah,
comes Ivy again, right?
yeah.
Because an opportunity presented itself. I took it. From being a recruiting manager, I took the leap to becoming an assistant vice president for human resources. And it was the best decision that I made because I never left,
Mm.
right? I this is still where I am, and I've really grown in it.
Your operative word in that statement was fear. So many times people look at opportunities and they fear. I may not be, imposter syndrome comes in, and they say I may not be quite capable of doing that. I'm not going to apply. I'm not going to move forward because I'm fearful. And trust me, so many people, professional people, go through the same things. Once they reach a certain level, they still go through the same thing. So conquering fear, this came about and it gave you an opportunity to say, you know what? I'm going to try it. And I tried it and it worked.
Yep. So it's that formula. It's that formula, right? Um, Again, it won't just happen. You can't let fate decide this for you,
Mm,
right? So I took it, Ron, but I did a lot of reading because reading is such a powerful way to learn in silence, right? I needed to learn, those technical terms right? The jargons of HR practitioners.
Yeah.
I spoke to lawyer friends,
Buzzwords,
and
yeah.
during meetings, when it's a room full of experts, even if I am the one bearing the highest position, I would intentionally listen, and I would jot down notes, and I would actually chase them after the meeting and ask them, hey, in the meeting you said this. Can you tell me what's the difference between this and that? For example, I chased up our lawyer and I asked him, what is the difference between retrenchment and redundancy really? And, that really is how I learn, because it's multiple things. I read, I ask, I observe, and I practice.
Yeah.
Sometimes you would fail. Yeah, sometimes you would fail, but it has to be a calculated risk, because I knew as well as a new practitioner of the field where my vulnerabilities were. So in the team, right, I had a team of people. The first thing I did, the first order of business, to find out who does what best. Right? Sit down with them and understand, okay, what do you do best? And where are you not that great at? So then I kind of come up with an inventory, right? And depending on the need, I bring in my top person. It need not necessarily be a meeting. It could be, just bouncing back ideas, picking up their intellect, and, learning it from there. I learn from the people that I work with.
Yeah. One of the key points of a topic that you mentioned, you didn't understand what was said, and you went and asked. So many people are fearful of doing that because they feel they're supposed to know. So it's okay to not know. I said the strongest phrase you can always use is that, I don't know and I don't understand. Can you explain that to me? Which is what you did. I never forget a session I did in Kuala Lumpur, and a young man came to me afterwards and he says, I'm so appreciative that you explained what EBITDA was, earnings before interest, taxes.
EBITDA, yes.
From the financial component. I said, why do you say that? He said, because I've sat in meetings and this term was used, but I was too afraid to ask because I didn't want to appear to be stupid. I said, why would you feel that you appear to be stupid? You need more insight. I said, one of the things that you think about, if you ever want to ask a question and you're fearful of asking that, there's 3 other people in the room or 4 other people in the room that want to ask the same thing. What are you going to do? Shoot you if you ask a question? Just ask the question. People say, well, I want to, this may sound stupid. I said, there's never a stupid question. You're asking for insight.
Yeah, it will be a strategy to just do this.
Yeah, it is. So you manage a large team.
I do.
Yeah, you do manage a large team. How do you keep your team motivated?
So it's a team of over 100, right, in total. But I do have my direct reports.
Yeah.
And I start with the inner circle, right?
Okay.
The directors and the senior directors. The key, number one, that really is relationship, right? I have always believed that to go fast, you need to go slow.
Yeah.
And that needs to be scaffolded, well built, so that comes the toughest time, you stick together, right? Because that's the way to go through difficult moments.
Yeah.
After establishing, the baseline relationship, I have to make sure, and I think I said this a little earlier, that I know who's great at what. So again, that matrix, right? And I interview people about their awareness of their strengths and where they want to take these strengths to. Like, for example, I was just having a discussion with one of my best performers, and she's HRIS. That's what she does. And I asked her, what do you want to do next? Knowing that data science is actually one of the number 1 most in demand skill in the world.
Yes.
Right? And I had to take the lead to get her curious about it. And now she's researching about it and thinking of how to enter that space. And she knows that I opened up about that because I want her to chart her own course of career. What am I saying? I'm saying I'm tapping into their internal motivation, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to really be great at what she does, like that HRIS person, right? And that's how she keeps herself motivated at work, then that's what I'm going to do. Someone else is interested in baking, right? And so what I do is when I taste her, baked products, I give her feedback and it warms her heart. Someone else, loves eating. And so I also discuss the same thing. So it's stepping into their world,
Yes.
right? So that they know that you're not just a boss. You're also not a friend, but you're kind of a career companion, career life companion. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's really what I do, because then we're together, right? And they're going to do what it takes, no matter how hard it is to deliver.
Yeah, that's exactly the new level of leadership that's been defined post-COVID, is understanding your people. You've got 10 people, 15 people. Each person has a different motivation. So one person's baking. So I do this leadership development program that I run across the world, and it's about symphonic C-suite. So that could be symphonic to managers. I have managers reporting into me, but I need to understand each one. I need to understand the instrument that each person plays. And if I understand that instrument, I can talk to you in terms of that instrument. So you said baking, which I started laughing because I love to bake. Used to love to bake, but I stopped because if I bake 3 dozen chocolate chip cookies, I'm going to eat 2.5 dozen. So I don't bake. Yeah, right. So I don't bake anymore. But this is the concept that we talk about, and understanding each person that works for you is an individual. And there's no one size fit all, and interpreting that. So we talk about the leadership toolkit and what you use. So it's amazing how you picked up all these things at your age, and you're bestowing that on people. Do you understand the science behind it? Probably not, but it works. And you're making an impact. So when you look at the way that your career has grown, and you look at the way that people listen to what you're saying, all that came about as a result of something as small as the person who loves to bake, or the person who's the HRIS system that you've had career discussions with.
Yep, indeed.
Yep. Way ahead of your time. Way ahead of your time. So what makes it? What's one thing that makes you proud of your career journey, of a step that you made and you said yes, cool? Looking back on it and said yes. Because there was a lot of times you look back on it and say, oh no, that didn't work. But yes.
My first answer to that would be about the record that myself and my team made back in I think that was 2010. Yep. We were supporting growth, and that was to hire for 950 people, 950. And we only had a budget of 60 days to do that.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, my personal situation, people who have been in recruiting, they go, she can feed Ivy, 950, we all can do that. But what's unique about my situation at the time is I was against myself. I was working against myself because I applied for a higher position and they said no to me. I was passed on. So I was at the time already about to exit because I found another company that gave me what I applied for.
Okay.
Right? I was in my notice period and this job order came in. So I needed to do it during my notice period. And typically what people think or expect during that time is this person's winding down. You can't expect a lot from that person, right?
Yeah.
But
already checked out.
Yeah. Yes. But I didn't want to fail, right? So we managed it really. Like, some people dichotomize the ideas of management and leadership. right? Like they say, oh, to be a great leader, you can't be like micromanaging people. But it really depends on the situation. When you run operations that's very tight in terms of targets, yeah, you can't just do inspirational talks with people. That's not gonna cut it.
Yeah.
You have got to know the goals, right? Quantify that, be very clear who does what and what the consequences are if people don't deliver. So I would have my 8 a.m. check-ins, 10, 12, without fail, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That was our day, right? Like every interval. How are we doing? How are we doing? How do we make up for it? Pivot. We've got to adjust if we're not making to the goal. Like any halftime coach would if we're not making score, right?
Yeah.
And we did it in 45 days. We hired everyone, pre-boarded everyone, 45 days. I think we made it for 3 days.
I can't even imagine that. But when you're good at what you do, you can make it happen.
But it stemmed really from, finishing strong, even if you were already finishing, right? That's why I'm very proud about that experience because, like I said, I was nursing that wound, right, of not being taken for that position somehow. But, rallied the team and was supported by a team that still, invested extra time and effort, even if I was not going to be their manager anymore for the next months to come. And, that company rehired me, actually, and realized that, they were still going to take me anyway for the position that they said no to earlier. So
they came back and made a pivot. They said, okay, yeah, we need you now.
After some time. Yes.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool that happened. So how do you continue to grow as a leader? I know you and I talk all the time. And how do you stay focused, in the pressures of managing such a large team and all of those incredible responsibilities that you have? How do you grow? What does Ivy do to stay focused, to read or whatever it is to?
Ivy has a system. And that system means that I think about what's important. I kind of know what's important, what's urgent, what's both, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
But it's like an emergency doctor, right? I try to triage things. And I know when they come, I already have, a way to sort them. So I have here in my chat groups already. If this is about that, I know who to flick it to. If it's about that, I know. So there's a lot of things going on if there are blurbs here, right? And I have a mental map of who do I have to go back to. At the middle of the day, I have to check in. How are you progressing? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down or this if you need me to come in, right? If you need surgery, you'll have to tell me. But what's important is checking in. And then at the end of the day, thumbs up, thumbs down, I really need to do that intentionally. So then I really have this mental checklist, right? And I don't know if it's instinct, Ron, but I kind of prepare push buttons, right? So if I know, okay, I've got 3 major important things to resolve today. There's a labor case here. There's a negotiation there. There is, huge ramp to fulfill here. There's plan B for each.
Okay.
Like, if all hell breaks loose, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right? And people know who they would go to so that if they don't reach me, they also have plan Bs to activate. And so even if I'm not there, they feel like I'm there already because they know what to do.
Okay. You just gave a master class. That could be a class within itself, the way that you approach that. Because sometimes leaders become overwhelmed with all the situations because they don't really think it through, reflect, and how do you build a plan. So when you use the concept of the doctor, it's amazing because I started laughing when you said it, because I use that all the time. If you think of what human resources does, general practitioner, where's the ailments? What are the symptoms? If it's people, we solve that, in doing that. So your analogy makes sense because you have to find solutions within the organization, and yours is people centered. The finance person is finance centered. Marketing person is finance, technology, all of that. But you bring all of the expertise as it relates to the people function. I need X amount of people here to do this. I need this upskilling. It goes on and on. So thank you for using the doctor analogy, because I'm like, yay, somebody else uses that. So that was cool. That was cool. So let's take a commercial break now, and then we'll come back. I have a few more questions before we close out. Cool.
Identify and book the world's best speakers for your next event. MENA Speakers is the leading speakers and MC bureau in the Middle East. We bring global talent to the region and have established the region as a key global hub for speakers. Inspire and motivate your audience. Find exactly what you are looking for by working closely with us to assist you in understanding the cost-benefit analysis tied to selecting a speaker for any event. Ensure that your audience is educated, engaged, and empowered. Connect with us for a quick response and tailored advice. Book your speakers now.
Okay, welcome back, folks. What do you look for when you hire people? Is there a certain trait that you look for when you're trying to figure out whether this person is going to be the person for this particular job?
This might be a cliche. Yeah, this might be a cliche, but after, of course, determining, their expertise, their technical competencies, it will come down to their attitude. I have to share, recently, I was recruiting for a headhunter, and I had this person I interviewed with me, and technical recruiter was great. He knew, C.NET, Python, all the, things that a technical recruiter should know.
Yeah.
But every time he speaks, he'd go, well, for people like me who's done that and this, I know exactly blah, blah. And he keeps talking around those language.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, well, let's try this out some more, right? So how is your fill rate now? How many do you hire out of how many requirements? And he goes, this great reshuffle is really bad. Before I could do 5/5, but now I only do 3/5 because it's hard. People are blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, wow. Okay, I got someone who is so fixated with his old success and who does not recognize or maybe, plays down the fact that he's not able to rise up to the occasion of recruitment today, right?
Yeah.
So that's attitude. Because if you have the humility to say, yes, I have a wall full of certificates saying I'm the best recruiter in the world, but now I'm no longer that, then I would at least show that, right? I would at least say, Ivy, it's a continuous learning process for us recruiters because blah, 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 blah. Never heard that. I didn't hire the guy.
Yeah. You know what, Ivy? It's amazing how you keep focusing on things that I always talk about. Because when you mentioned a wall full of certificates, and I tell people the last day of all my sessions, I said, you're going to pass the certification and you're going to get a certificate and you're going to put it on the wall. I said, but that means nothing to nobody but you and your family. That, hey, you did this or you posted online. I said, because if the organization needs help, if you can't solve that, all of this stuff means absolutely nothing. So which means that when you leave here with this certification, you got to start working on a project as soon as you get in.
Yes.
Because some people get caught up. They got certifications on this. Somebody said, I want to go back to university and get a PhD in human resources. Why? Are you going to teach, or an organization is looking for solution providers, certificates and all these kind of things? If you can provide the solution that you need or your organization needs, forget about it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a New York phrase, forget about it.
But pretty much.
Yeah. So that's a key point. So you look for someone who says, I understand what's happening now, and I understand how I may have to change my way of looking at this in 2 to 3 years ago, because the marketplace has totally changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's important, right? Their appetite to learn more, but that can only be if there's humility. That's why I said it's a matter of attitude.
Okay, cool. Because one of the things, I'll go back to you being one of the top 100 Filipinos in, on LinkedIn, and people look to you for inspiration. Like, you post things, and you respond to other people that posted things, and you create that kind of you're a consistent cheerleader for people that are growing. And that creates a message, a branding behind you. And I think that's important from a social phase.
Thank you. I didn't even realize that that's how it is put together. But yeah. But my good friend Darwin Rivers, he was even telling me one time, sis, you need to make sure that you dress up well every time, because you have young lady HR practitioners asking us, right? I wonder how she will dress up. So now I feel obligated to keep up with the expectations, but all good. It helps me be, consistently good and paying attention.
Yeah, Darwin is my man. I love Darwin, and Darwin was on the show a while back, but I love him, follow him, and I cheer him on because he's doing amazing things. So Darwin, if you're listening, we're talking about you in a good way. So all that's cool. So what is the most important leadership lessons you've learned over the course of your career?
17 years taught me, Ron, that there is no better leadership principle in action than being a good example. Leadership by example.
Yeah.
I can't highlight it more, right? Which also means that you will have to sacrifice, right? If you want people to have the attitude of never say die, right? You have to also deliberately show people that you do not say die ever. And that's easier said than done.
Yeah. Wow. That's another home run you just hit, because that took me back, because I deal with I do a lot of leadership development. And I always tell leaders, people are always watching. You say one thing, big high level, high note kind of speech, but they watch you and you don't do that, because you say one thing and you do another. And you're talking about creating culture. You and your team will create the culture, the way that you act, an example you set, an organization is going to mimic that.
Yep. I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, action speaks louder than words, right? And it's very, very much true for leadership.
Yeah.
What does that make me when I just say what I say? It makes me a hypocrite. Nobody wants to be around a hypocrite.
Yeah. Hypocrite is your branding. Yeah. So there was a story in New York that signified that. I was coming in from lunch one day, and our office is on 42nd Street, and I got in an elevator. And I always tell this story. I got in the elevator, and I'm standing on the left side, person on the right side where the control panel is, and he kept pushing the button to try to close the door. And I'm thinking, what? And I'm standing on this. Why is he pushing the button to try to close the door? And eventually the door closed, and there was a person that was trying to get in, and the door closed in their face. And as the elevator was moving up, I'm going to the 23rd floor. I said, excuse me. I said, why were you so diligently trying to close the door? He says, oh, sir, I'm sorry. He said, that was our CEO. And I just didn't want to deal with the guy. He said, the guy's the biggest fake there is on the planet. He talks all these good things and he does something totally different. But he's always talking about leadership and this kind of thing. And he's the worst leader there is. And I'm thinking, how many people in organizations feel the same way about their leader? Because at that time, I worked for Martha Stewart. And if Martha was coming in, if Sharon was coming in, if Sharon was the CEO, they would have held the door open for them. But what that gentleman showed is that this is the way people inside of an organization sometimes view leaders, because you may think you're all that, but you're not all that.
Indeed.
Yes. So one last question before we close. Tell us about a person who's had an important influence with you to kind of help shape you as to how you are a leader today. Prior boss, family member, whatever it is.
A person. That would be my Miss Tessa. Tessa was our manager back when, you remember the story about moving to organization development, and the person I talked to said, excuse me, I want to interview, but only after I've learned OD.
Yeah.
It was her. And we lost her to cancer actually years ago.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah, but she is this person who just exudes kindness all the time. And I'm a competitive person. I'm very goal oriented, so I tend to always give tough love, right? She was the person who taught me to always be kind, to understand that people are work in progress. And it doesn't make anyone any better person by judging a person without knowing the journey that person is going through, because we're not moving at the same pace. Our journeys are different. And it's stuck in my head. Whenever I am tempted to get disappointed with somebody's performance, it would ring in my head how she would say, Ivy, always remember, people are work in progress. So that will prompt me to check, why did this happen? Tell me what you were going through. What were you feeling at the time that you wrote this, for example, if it was a crappy tagline for an advertisement, right? So that I know whether it's just a situation that the person has to deal with successfully to be back at it again. And follow through, right? With, people showing potential, you've got to treat them for that potential that they show you, because that's how you build the loyalty. And to me, that's also kindness, right? There's many faces of kindness, but Miss Tessa showed me how to make that coming from here, because you have a good understanding that people need it.
Yeah. Wow. Miss Tessa, that was an amazing learning that you picked up from her. And so when COVID came about and they're studying leadership dynamics as a result of COVID, one of the key points that came through was exactly what Ms. Tessa was talking about, is empathy. A gentleman, a business partner of mine, Adnan Narani in Dubai, producer of the Future Innovation Summit, got up and gave a speech last night, and he talked about his grandparents, his grandfather, grandmother as inspirational. Didn't know it as a kid, but he still connects back to the learnings of what that came from. So I always tell people, think back in your prior life. Are you exhibiting the same things that you learned from that person? Will someone say 10 years from now that said, Miss Ivy, I worked for her, and that was a grounding force for me, and I'm now at this big shot level or whatever it is in life. And maybe I'm not in the big shot level, whatever it is, but you still made an impression on that person.
because it's definitely impacting their lives, and the ability to multiply the positivity that comes out of that is incredible. So she taught me that.
Cool. Miss Ivy, thank you, Miss Ivy, for this
Miss
wonderful
Tessa?
lesson at the close. Yes. I'm sorry, Miss Tessa. Yes, not Miss Ivy, Miss Tessa. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Ivy, thank you so much for making time. I know it's almost 9 o'clock from your side, or maybe a little later. You were in Manila at this point in time, but I thank you for being on the show, and thank your family. Tell Neff that I appreciate him for you being here, as not being in family time and all that, the kids and all. So thank you so much, and we'll be in touch as always.
We will be. Thank you, and thanks to your audience for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Hold on for a minute. We're going to close out officially, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Okay, cool.